started work. I started working in sales at Salesforce.org back when we were the Salesforce Foundation. Also, back when they didn't really care if their salespeople knew how to sell. They just wanted people that understood nonprofits and education. So that was how I ended up in that situation. It was a lot of fun and I learned a ton, but I moved over to the world of community. About a year later, and I've been working in our on our community team in various capacities for the last almost 6 years. Prior to that, I, like you, worked in nonprofit. I was an accidental admin. I have had a lot of those same experiences that you have had, where it's off the side of your desk being an admin and you're learning something new. And I think community groups are such a great way to kind of dig in and learn more and get to know people that are in your same boat. But I want to let the other folks from .org introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of dive into the nitty gritty of our presentation for today. Cori?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Cori. I'm Senior Manager of the Open Source Commons program. And if you have no idea what that is, that's okay. I'll be talking about it later on my slides. I have been in the Salesforce space since 2010. I used to work at an ISV partner building applications for nonprofits, was exclusively in the nonprofit space for credit card processing. So if you ever want to know about the exciting world of credit card processing for nonprofits, let me know. And I started here at .org about 3.5 years ago on the team that runs the community sprints and the open source commons program. So super excited to be sharing with you a little bit of information today about how you can volunteer and why you should volunteer, I think, in the nonprofit and education community. So thank you.
Thanks, Cori.
Brian. No problem.
I think that leaves me then to round out our group of presenters today. So hello, everyone. My name is Brian Mattos, or commonly referred to as Pro Bono Brian, commonly but affectionately. I have been at Salesforce now for just about 4 years at Salesforce.org, focused on our pro bono programs, looking at how we're leveraging our employees' time and talent with our nonprofit and education customers around the world. Prior to Salesforce, like many folks, came from the nonprofit sector, but was specializing in technology capacity building programs. So spending most of my time building and scaling programs focused on pulling corporate talent from companies that were building or offering technology to nonprofits and their amazingly skilled employees, and matching them with nonprofits in need of that technology expertise. So I've been in and around this kind of pro bono space for quite a long time, but have been using Salesforce specifically since just about 2014. It's been a few years, but definitely not as long as those of you, I think it was like David, maybe, or Joseph, sorry, I don't remember who, 1999. Definitely not that long, but a few years. But yeah, super excited to share a little bit more about how you can access expertise and volunteers from Salesforce if your organization is in need of it. But back to Anne to kick us off.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I like to say Brian has like the most fun job ever, but maybe he might be competing with Cori. That's also a very fun job. I already introduced myself a little bit. My name is Anne Young, Director of Community Strategy and Engagement at Salesforce.org, and trying to just have the longest title humanly possible. But what that means is that I run community programs for Salesforce.org. So what that has meant since 2013 primarily is the Power of Us Hub, which is our online community. But this presentation is happening at a really interesting time, because on November 15th, a month from tomorrow, I believe, we are moving the Power of Us Hub into the existing Salesforce Trailblazer community. So normally, where I would spend my time today talking about how to engage in the hub and what groups to look at, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our choice to move over to the Trailblazer community, why we're so excited about it, some of the great things you can expect when we make a move, and also give you some other resources for engaging in community. I did want to say you started off in the right place. Engaging with a community group is such an awesome way to be a part of the Salesforce.org community. And I think it's a really welcoming way. It's wonderful to see that there are other people in the same boat at all areas of their Salesforce journey, learning and excited to learn together. I always feel like I have such a nice, warm and fuzzy group of people that I get to work with in the Salesforce.org community. Everyone's always so excited to help each other be successful. I think some of that has to do with that you're all, non-profiteers, like the rest of us on this call, but also I just think, we've built this really incredible community of people over the years. Want to introduce my team really quickly. Lizzie Roberts, she's wasn't able to join us today because she is actually in the UK. She is our manager of global community engagement and sort of my counterpart over there in the UK. She helps develop community engagement strategies. And our entire focus is making your experience better in our online community, at events, in working with community group leaders to make sure they have the content that they need, just making sure that your experience working together and learning from each other is really a positive one. And then Bo introduced himself briefly. Bo is new to our team and we are thrilled to have him. He is in charge of the day-to-day, making sure things in the community are running smoothly, people are getting their questions answered. He also runs our email account, community@salesforce.org, if you do have specific questions and you're unable to reach us in another forum. But we're thrilled to have Bo on the team and to be kind of growing our group of community leaders. Jokingly, people used to say community team, and I would laugh because for a long time that just meant me. And I was like, yeah, the community team. So I'm so excited to be growing my small but mighty team. But in addition to my team, community is nothing without you all, without the members of our community. So I always start these presentations by giving a huge thank you. You're the reason that we do all this, and also you're the reason that all this works. Community is not very exciting if you're posting a question in an online forum and then someone from Salesforce is answering you. That's not a dynamic conversation. I think especially in the world of nonprofit, people are interested in hearing how each other are doing things, how different people are being successful, how people are leveraging a lot of the free resources that they have just by virtue of being a Salesforce.org customer, which Brian will talk more about today. But really, it's about engaging. It's about working together. It's about getting to know each other. When I look at this slide and other slides I have like these of our community members, it's awesome to know how many of these folks are friends in real life, are have worked for each other over the years. We do have a pair of folks that got married who met in the hub. So it's really just a special place that means a lot to me. So thank you for being an extended members of our community. We love having you. I also wanted to say before I dive in too much, since we are a relatively small group, feel free to ask questions in the chat. And Laura, if you want to shout it out for me or Cori or whoever, I'm happy to answer as I go along. I tend to interrupt myself too, so don't worry about interrupting me. It's just virtue of who I am. So community is everywhere, as I love the kind of tagline of this slide. But last year, or coming up on 2 years ago at this point, everything kind of changed. We all started working from our kitchens. We had to find new ways of working and learning and connecting and collaborating with each other. Zoom sort of became where we hung out. We were no longer meeting over lunch or over coffee. And the cool thing that I realized when this happened is that didn't actually change a whole lot about our community, that our community really is everywhere. And even though we couldn't be in person, our community members were really finding ways to connect with each other. And they really wanted those touch points and that option to reach out to each other. And especially now when a lot of people are skilling up and making career changes and wanting to do something different. And I think the really great part about that is that we are part of a huge community at Salesforce. Salesforce.org is just one piece of connecting with the larger Salesforce ecosystem. So I want to dive into a little bit about the history of our community at salesforce.org, what was the Power of Us Hub, which is now kind of moving into where we will be in just one short month now in the Trailblazer Community 2.0. So before I dive in there, do we have any questions? No? All right. So our partners at salesforce.com are investing in this awesome new Trailblazer community platform. It's going to create a more personalized and intelligent experience than you currently have now. And it's super tightly integrated with Trailhead and other Salesforce sites, and eventually with your org. It'll all be sort of living in one place. And when we learned about this happening, that the Trailblazer community was building this awesome new thing, we thought, hey, we have had all these reasons that the Power of Us Hub lives and stands on its own, but is it time to make a change? Is it time for us to integrate our community with Salesforce.com? Because ever since we launched the hub, we've received feedback about how challenging it is to exist in two communities, the hub and the Trailblazer community. So if you're in the hub, you know that your community group lives in the Trailblazer community, and there's also some platform resources that you need to access there, but a lot of your product resources were in the Power of Us hub. So as we looked at all this new feature availability and functionality coming with the new Trailblazer community platform, we thought, hey, is it time? We also have this growing suite of Salesforce.org products that are going to be used by the public sector, things like grant making. And we're also seeing that the face of philanthropy and the face of nonprofit is really changing. And we want to be a part of that. And we want to be community leaders in that space. So we're now at this crossroads, and we see it as a way to start making connections across all the various stakeholders who are invested in social impact across the Salesforce ecosystem. Making this move is going to help us enable more pro bono volunteers who want to support nonprofits. It's going to help us make connections between people and organizations in the Salesforce ecosystem that are interested in things like sustainability, equality, ethical use of technology, things like that. We're going to really be able to be making these exciting connections. And part of the reason Salesforce.org integrated into Salesforce.com a few years ago was to be able to bring the full power of the Salesforce ecosystem to bear on some of these huge challenges facing our communities. And we need to be fostering those conversations in our new communities. And that's hard if we have this separation between nonprofit users and the rest of Salesforce. So that's why we're making this move into the new community. So we see a ton of potential in this. It's this way to make connections and a way for us all to work together. I don't have too much to say on this slide. I really like this graphic of how social impact is going to spread across all of the Salesforce Trailblazer community when we do make this move in just a month. So what's happening is the Power of Us Hub is launching our new home in the reimagined Trailblazer community, which launched on June 21st of 2021. The old community will remain accessible, but just as a knowledge base to access some of the articles that we have. And you'll be able to kind of move forward and do some really exciting stuff. I'm not going to click on this now, but I did want to provide you this really great demo of what the new Trailblazer community looks like. If you're already engaging there, a lot of these features you will have already seen because they launched in June, but this is a great refresher of all the things that were brand new when they came up. And
Trailblazers.
No,
You've
I
been
didn't.
asking for it for years. So buckle up.
No matter what, it wants you to play this video.
It really does. Can you share the link to it later on, and I'll share it with the group?
Yeah, absolutely. I will share a link to the video. And then I wanted to talk about other ways to engage outside of the Trailblazer community. We have Friday coffee chats with the Salesforce.org community every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. I know it's early, but it's a nice way to start your day. And we really have no agenda. We just chat about, people's pets or their children or what their weekend plans are. Occasionally someone asks a Salesforce question and occasionally someone will give an awesome demo, but it's really just a way for our community to engage and to get to know each other. My second one, I put a little winky face by because I said, join your local community group. You are all already members of your local community group, so you're doing a great thing. But what I was going to say was something Joseph mentioned at the beginning of the call, which the majority of our groups are still very much virtual all around the world. So feel free to find a topic that you're interested in and join another group and get to know people around the world and really engage with your community. And then my last piece of advice is to attend a community sprint, which Cori is going to tell you more about in just a minute. But before that, we have Brian talking about Pro Bono program and how to access all these awesome things that he has to offer through our ecosystem. Did we want to hold questions till the end, or did anybody have anything pop up in the chat?
No, it's just me saying that I will try to make it one of these Fridays. I'm not always a morning person, so has not happened yet. But
It's
I have
hard for
signed
the
up.
yeah, it's hard for the West Coast folks. We get a lot of people in the UK actually, who are kind of winding down their days. There is also, you know, the occasional person with kids in their car while they're driving them to school or they're on a walk. So yeah, it's very informal, but it's fun.
I'm looking forward to joining one of these days.
And I did want to say, since we are on the precipice of our move to the Trailblazer community, we are looking for some people to do UAT testing, so end user testing, as we're making our changes. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, please do reach out to me after this, because we build the community for you and we want it to work for you. So please do let me know if you want to be a part of that really fun process. All right. Brian, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Anne. And I think you're still driving, right? So thank you very much. Yeah, so just get a chance to share a little bit more about kind of pro bono programs, how all of you can access expertise from our amazing number of Salesforce employees who love to leverage their 56 hours of volunteering time off that they get every year with all of you. So we'll just kind of just cover a little bit more about what the program is, how it works, and when you might want to consider using it. A few tips and tricks along the way, and then definitely some kind of end with some next steps on kind of how to move forward with accessing and submitting an actual project. So we will dive right in. So, you know, through the program, you can request hands-on expertise from a Salesforce employee on a short-term pro bono project. The program's a great way for organizations because you get access to highly skilled volunteers from Salesforce, but it's also a great way for all of our Salesforce employees to get, you know, kind of personal and professional rewarding opportunities to again use that volunteer time off that Salesforce gives them every year. You know, over the last few years, we've collected feedback from, you know, more than 400 organizations around the world on their experience through the program. And here you can see some of those kind of great stats that we see from them directly. You know, 85% saying they're more effective in achieving their missions, 86% saying they're better able to manage their sales force as a result of these engagements that they're having through the program, and overall 88% of them saying they were satisfied with their experience in the program. So just really great numbers and results that, you know, we're really happy to see as an outcome of the engagements that nonprofits are having with our employee volunteers. So we know the program is making a difference, you know, for organizations around the world. And, you know, we can talk a little bit more about how it actually works. So here you can see kind of across the timeline, the overall flow to the program itself. So you take about 10 minutes to submit a brief application on the .org website. It's just salesforce.org/pro bono. Pretty easy to remember. After you submit that, you're actually contacted by a Salesforce employee to confirm the kind of goals and scope of the project that you're trying to accomplish. Then after that, we've confirmed those details with you and that the project itself fits within our program guidelines, which I'll talk about in a minute. We'll make the project available to employees. It essentially opens up on our volunteering marketplace that any Salesforce employee can access. And then when an employee does sign up, you get automated notifications all along the way that let you know kind of the status and updates around your project. And then you work with that volunteer to kind of determine the timeline for the project, best ways that you're going to communicate and work together to actually deliver on the work. And then that volunteer, ultimately spends about 20 hours or so on the project and working alongside you. Although that definitely kind of varies depending on the nature of the project, and could be shorter, it could be a little bit longer. But ultimately, when that volunteer and you come to the conclusion that the project has been completed, that gets updated in our system, and then you get kind of a survey to share your feedback on how your experience was as part of the program process. So, before you submit an application, you'll definitely want to make sure that the program is going to be a good fit for your organization's kind of needs and capacity. So you'll want to ask yourself a couple of questions. First being, is your request time sensitive? So, while we are matching at about a 90% rate, so 9 out of every 10 projects that are being submitted are being matched to a volunteer, there is a chance that we won't be able to kind of match a volunteer to your specific project. Once a project's matched, that project timeline is, also subject to the volunteer's availability and schedule, which might vary week to week depending on their specific workload. So for urgent projects, we definitely recommend seeking the expertise of a Salesforce.org consulting partner, or even just a general consultant. It adds a lot of, or volunteers can add, a lot of additional kind of work and complexity to a project, and especially if it's time sensitive, just adds some extra risk. So we would want you to avoid that if that project is of that much importance. The second is just around, is there an integration with a third-party app? If the project you have in mind requires integration with other products built by other companies, whether it's MailChimp or QuickBooks, or you can think of any sort of tool that an organization might be using or connecting with Salesforce. That's again another opportunity where we would generally guide you to leverage either a consulting partner, an actual consultant, or even that third-party platform to support you with that. Our employees are experts in a lot of things about Salesforce, but generally try to keep that expertise focused on our core platform products and services. And then the last one is just, do you have time to manage a volunteer? So you'll need to spend time, educating the volunteer about your organization and how you're using Salesforce, and essentially manage a whole nother person on your team. They might not be on the payroll at your organization, but they're there to support, and pro bono projects are going to ultimately result in more successful outcomes if they're treated as if they were an extension of your team. So it does require a little bit more people management than I think most folks tend to realize. But there are definitely a few more things to consider. This isn't everything. So we can definitely dive into some tips and tricks on what that looks like. So when submitting an application, you'll want to make sure you consider our pro bono program guidelines, which are kind of the basic principles for which the program's built around. So you'll see, again, requests have to be related to Salesforce technology. We want to keep it kind of within our core area of expertise. The idea that, most customer applications get matched. I mentioned kind of 9 out of every 10 is where we're at right now with a volunteer, but we can't actually guarantee it. Unfortunately, Mark Benioff and the Salesforce leadership team won't allow me to force people to volunteer for your projects. Maybe one day I'll get like the magic wand to do that. But until then, I am very much forced, or, I have to ask people really, really nicely. And generally, we have an amazing set of employees at Salesforce that we get to rely on and are really eager to raise their hands and help. But we just can't make any guarantees about volunteer matches in particular. And then lastly, just, requests with clear deliverables are often the quickest to get matched with the volunteer, right? Like if your need is, articulated in a way that resonates and is clear, and, I think everyone can be, or everyone can relate to the fact of, if someone asks you to do something, you don't want to commit to things unless you know the specific details of what you're committing to. And I think it's really easy, especially with Salesforce and kind of all of its complexities, to be like, I need help. But if you can't articulate what that help is, I think people can definitely be a little bit hesitant to get involved. So the more specific that you can be, and kind of the more prep work that you can do to kind of make sure you can articulate how you want help and what you want help with, and what your expectations are in terms of what that volunteer would deliver. Those are the types of details that are going to help kind of make your project resonate and stand out above other nonprofit projects. So just a couple of things to consider, but these guidelines leave room for a ton of potential pro bono projects. So here you can see just a handful, but when submitting an application, you'll be able to choose from one of 12 different project types on the application. And essentially this just lets us categorize and classify the types of skills that might be needed on our end to support you and the delivery of the project. So you'll see here, automating business processes, kind of change or release management, custom development work if you are building out some additional functionality. Maybe you're looking at a data migration or bringing data into Salesforce as you migrate from another system. Data security design, a big project type recently has been MFA. For those of you that haven't, hopefully everyone knows kind of the oncoming MFA rules and changes coming up over the next couple of years. So making sure that your organization's prepared for that multi-factor authentication journey. Moving to Lightning, just a couple of example ones, and then you'll see on the next slide a couple more. But essentially, you'll want to choose a project type that's going to be valuable, to you and your users at your organization. As the guidelines mentioned before, it shouldn't be something that you need urgently, because again, it's difficult to kind of predict when the project's going to be completed by. But you'll need additional project, or additional details about the project. So that's why we have that initial meeting with one of those volunteers, employee volunteers, to help kind of articulate and make sure that we've captured exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And that's the whole reason why we host those calls prior to posting your project. With that in mind, again, being thoughtful about what you're trying to accomplish in the project and including as much detail as you possibly can is going to be the best way to do that. And you'll see just, again, rounding out the other 6 NPSP upgrades are pretty popular: org health check and optimization, reports and dashboards, requirements gathering and solution design for folks that might be a little bit newer to the platform or thinking about expanding use cases. For folks that might still be on Classic and need to move to Lightning, offering support there. And then at a high level, really support around user adoption and training if you see adoption being something that your organization is struggling with. So those are kind of the big 12, just to give you an idea of what different types of projects you can submit. But let's run through a couple of pretty specific examples. So here's an example of like a user training and adoption project. So in this case, the organization felt that there was a significant opportunity for improvement with regards to how their users were using Salesforce on a daily basis. They knew Salesforce was a powerful platform, but they had a hunch that they could use it more than just storing some contacts, which was kind of the primary use case for folks at the time. So they turned to a pro bono volunteer to help them analyze how their users were engaging with Salesforce and providing recommendations on how they could make the platform more efficient and easier to use. So after learning how the organization kind of engaged, the volunteer was actually able to help them evaluate the setup of their leads and contacts and optimize it so it's more intuitive and practical for users to record the information that they actually wanted to track as it related to those individuals. And then having additional support, the volunteer actually proceeded to advise them on how their Salesforce licenses also had Service Cloud functionality that they could access to support additional needs when they were thinking about customer service in the future. So over the course of 19 hours, so right around that target 20-hour mark, the volunteer was able to address kind of both immediate and long-term needs, showing them how to improve their lead and contact management, allowing users to feel more comfortable, confident in the platform. And then, from a long-term perspective, the admin that was at that organization had new knowledge of kind of different capabilities that they had access to, and an opportunity to kind of increase the utility and value of the licenses that they already possessed without buying anything else. So, as is always recommended, the admin and the volunteer work together on the project. It's something that we really try to stress to make sure that, that old saying around, teach someone how to fish, and the value that it brings rather than just having someone do it for you, I think is a mentality we really try to stress around pro bono. Leverage the expertise of the volunteer that you are matched with to build your own skills and make you more confident. Because at the end of the day, volunteers are temporary, and your organization will, and the work that you do should be around much longer than that's one volunteer will be. So make sure that you leave yourself in a place that's going to allow you for long-term success and continued growth on the platform itself. So at the end of the day, learn and thereby gaining more skills as an admin in these organizations. They get to solve more challenges on their own in the future rather than relying on external support. And so I have a second example, but just for sake of time, we'll skip it for today. But you can see the second example is focused on standard configuration. I think, and a slide behind me. There we go. But it's just another example of how organizations or an organization leveraged it to just build out some custom page layouts, really do some of the core admin functionality that if you don't have access to that expertise, or you maybe just don't have the capacity because you are and also admin and have a ton of other responsibilities or hats that you're wearing. Just definitely tons of ways that you can leverage expertise from our Salesforce employees. So now that you
I
have
have a question for you. David actually posted it, and he wants to know how often can you request pro bono services as a nonprofit?
Great question, and thanks for being on top of the chat. So you can have one project open at any given time. So you can go to the website, submit a project. That project is open or ongoing. Once that project closes, you can essentially reopen a project or open another project as often as you'd like. Essentially, the limit is one project at a time. But as long as we're seeing positive results, you can continue to submit projects consecutively as your needs and capacity align. So essentially, there isn't like you have one project per year or one project per month. The application's always on, always available. It's just limited to one active project at a time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So in this case, just a couple of tips on, chances of your project getting matched are tied closely to the information that's included in your application. I've talked about that before. A few tips to kind of improve those chances. Again, connecting your project to impact. When you talk about, the work that you need done by someone to help you guys further your Salesforce journey and further your Salesforce usage, it's really helpful to make the connection for that potential volunteer to understand, oh, by helping us do this, that's going to allow us to do X. It helps kind of ground the volunteer in the work that they're doing, and not just, we need someone to import our data because we don't have the time to do it. I think everyone understands our time is limited, our resources are limited, but how can you connect the work that this volunteer would be doing to the larger goals of your mission and the work of your organization? That's always going to help, I think, sell the project internally for the right volunteer. Being clear and specific, we've talked about this a lot already, but just making sure that, and being as articulate about the needs that you're having, this is going to help attract the right volunteer with the right skill set to sign up for your project. Avoiding those ambiguous phases. We need help with Salesforce. Instead, using clear, specific language. We need to regularly remind fundraisers to follow up with potential donors, right? That's something very specific that articulates a very clear ask and situation that then, someone can respond to in terms of next steps. And then, also be sure to include any special volunteer requests. So if you're looking for a specific language fluency or geographical location, those types of requests are going to be important to be noted in the application, so we can make sure to, help identify the right person to support that. At this point, Salesforce has almost 70,000 employees around the world, which gives us a huge group of people and talent to tap into. Speaking all different kinds of languages and literally almost in every place that you could imagine. But we want to make sure that if you have specific needs, that those are matched as best as possible. And then just don't forget about the guidelines. We want to make sure that the projects fit within kind of our scope of our program and how we support organizations. So making sure that it is aligned. So once that project's submitted and hopefully matched with the volunteer, the success of your project comes down to how well you and your volunteer are going to work together, right? That actual project management. And that's what kind of the next slide is going to go into, just kind of a couple of tips, remembering that it's a learning opportunity. I talk about kind of, teaching someone how to fish is definitely the approach we like to see with our volunteers and how they engage, making sure to document everything. This is just a Salesforce best practice, right? When people are making changes and doing work, making sure that all of that's documented so you have something to lean on to. If you ever have to bring in another consultant or bring in a new admin, giving them a path and to understand exactly what changes were made into the system and why, especially, knowing that a volunteer is most likely only going to be there temporarily, short term. They're not going to be there forever. So you want to make sure that you're enabling your own self and your colleagues' ability to manage Salesforce successfully. Staying engaged, right? Most engagements especially successful ones, are going to happen when both the volunteer and the nonprofit organization stay engaged throughout the process, keep momentum, scheduling regular check-ins, opportunities for feedback and communication, regularly scheduled calls, just to make sure that things are happening in a timely engagement. The longer the project continues, the chances of success start to decrease as things go and kind of drag on. So keeping things timely, and then sharing your thoughts. Again, end of the project survey is a great opportunity to give us feedback about your experience, but just making sure you have a really open and engaging communication and conversation with the volunteer. Making people feel a part of the project, making people feel like they're providing meaning and value to the as part of the work and as part of the project is just crucial. Now that you have a chance, we've kind of gone through a couple tips and tricks. What does next steps look like? Again, the application is relatively fast and easy. It takes about 10 minutes to submit an application. We do have a Salesforce pro bono group in the hub. So to plug keep the community conversation going, you can take it to the hub, and that will also move with the hub into the Trailblazer community as we head into November. But if you have any additional questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me directly, or we have an email, probono@salesforce.com. Really easy to remember. You can always email our team, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can to support you kind of anywhere along your pro bono journey, even if you have questions before you submit an application. So with that, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to pass the baton over to Cori to dive into open source commons.
Great, thank you. I wanted to give a little space just in case. Are there any questions for Brian before I kick off? Okay. Oh. Perfect. Okay. Well, hi, I am Cori, as we already talked about. I think we can skip past this slide, Anne. And I wanted to talk with you a little bit about volunteering your skills. It ties into pro bono, it ties into community. And I really just want to share that you all have skills that are useful to our community should you choose to volunteer your time. But I didn't think it was really fair for me to ask you to start volunteering or talk to you about volunteering without sharing my own volunteering journey. So I, like I said, discovered Salesforce way back in 2010, but I discovered specifically the .org open source community in 2015. And that's really when I started my volunteering journey. I signed up for a project. It was posted in the hub, and it was to work with a nonprofit called the Salamta Family Project, who is based out of Ethiopia, and they support vulnerable children and families so that fewer children will become orphaned and abandoned. That project actually took me to Ethiopia in 2016, and I saw the direct impact that my contributions and my volunteering was having. And it really changed not only my life, but my perspective on the world, and started me on my path to continue to work alongside our community, both in a volunteering, in a pro bono, and an open source way, and led me to my job here at Salesforce.org. I still continue to volunteer my time with Salamta. I give them 2 hours a week, every week, and we talk about all sorts of things related to Salesforce and coaching and mentoring their administrator. So next slide, please. So today I just wanted to briefly talk about why you should contribute your skills, like what can you get out of it as well, as giving away your amazing talents and skills, where you can do that right now, and then just a couple of resources to get you started. So really, next slide. And so really contributing is a win-win. You can, it's a great way to learn. It's a great way to give back to our community, like I discovered when I went to Ethiopia. Again, it's a win-win. You can develop new skills or improve on those you already have. That helps you build your portfolio. If you're a partner, that helps build your brand, your expertise in the community, and it can grow your reputation as well. You can do things like coaching or mentoring someone like I do. You can teach your skills, you can give feedback on someone else's work, and you can even support nonprofits and schools that are creating custom innovations and sharing them with the broader community. That's what my program, the Open Source Commons, helps our community to do. And it can be really fun to contribute. So you can meet new people, you can network, you can join in events like hackathons or the community sprint events that I put on. Next slide. So I love this slide so much because it just shows how fun it can be. We take a lot of photos, whether it's in person or now virtual. But just a quick overview, the Open Source Commons program is a partnership between Salesforce.org and you, the community. That includes our customers and our partners and our staff. And it was really created as a response to the work the community was already doing, and gives a framework to support volunteers who are looking to contribute their skills and ideas and build something and then share it with the broader community. That can be an app, but it doesn't have to be. And we have actually been creating open source solutions since 2006. So way back when the nonprofit starter pack at the time was being developed by the community in our nonprofit space. So that's a really, really long time. That's over 15 years ago. So like I said, this isn't new for the community, building open source and sharing it. We're just working out a framework to give teams of volunteers what they need to move a project forward and have it be adopted by customers and sustained over time. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to say share some examples of the different roles that are common in our community, whether it be working with a team of volunteers or working at a sprint event. And they need help to do all kinds of things, like managing a large scale project. They need engineers to help build and test their innovations when they're building one. And they need release engineering and best practices with packaging. But for the non-engineers in the room, like myself, they need help with testing. So user testing, writing documentation, answering customer support questions in the hub or the Trailblazer community. They need help with marketing and promotion. And that's a major skill gap, actually, how to market something, how to promote something, how to recruit volunteers to do something. So anyone who has those types of skills, I have 14 different teams that are looking for help, and you can contribute your time to them if you like. So it can be really rewarding and really fun all around. Next slide, please. So where can you contribute your skills right now, literally after this call? Next slide, please. So the best way to get involved generally is to join the Open Source Commons program. I have some resources later on where you can do that, like Twitter and LinkedIn and the Trailblazer community. But it's really, this is what the program does. We have three kind of pillars, which is creating collaboration spaces. And that would include our community sprint events where we get together in person or virtually and like hack on solutions for a couple of days at a time. But we also have Slack channels. We have the groups where we facilitate conversation. And so we really are just gathering people together to help innovation be sparked and then also worked on at the same time. But we can get everyone together in a room to build things, but if you don't know how to build something, it doesn't really go very far. So we've been doing a lot of enablement, and we do training classes on some of our more technical tools. I give training classes on GitHub and kind of what that looks like. We'll facilitate mentorship, mentee. So if anyone's learning a skill today, I'll help them figure out where they can share that skill tomorrow. So our staff in a pro bono way will do training opportunities with the community, whether one-on-one or in a group format. But we also get community members to do training for the community as well. So if you have a special skill that you would love to teach someone or a group of people, let's talk. Let me know. I can facilitate that. And then we also give them the tools they need. Just real quick on the third one there. So they need tools to be able to do things. So we actually give them access to the AppExchange security review, for example. Unless you're a partner, you generally don't have access to that. So we've built partnerships internally that help our teams that have a package get through security review. So there's lots of really cool things like that come along with the program. So I have three different examples here of teams that are looking for specific goals. I hope we'll be able to maybe share the deck, but just really high level. One is called the Grassroots Mobile Sync, and they're creating two cell phone apps that will allow people in the field where they don't have internet to take information on their phone via their apps and then sync it back into Salesforce when they get to data or Wi-Fi. And they're building this for free and open source for the community. They're about to go through a security review right now. So they're looking for things like help with engineering and testing, documentation, and again, marketing. And next slide. So Summit Events are looking for a very similar type of skills. They're building an events app, again, free and open source for the community. Started at the University of St. Thomas and has been contributed back into the community. And then the third example is not an app at all, actually. It's the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion team. And they attended, the original leaders of this group attended one of our in-person community sprint events and didn't see enough people of color in the room. And it's been something we have been working on internally, but really we needed a community team to partner with. So this team has been incredible. They're doing surveys of our community, which as far as we can tell is the very first time surveys like these have been done, full stop. So they've been publishing their results. They've been giving us a lot of great tips and advice, and we have been working with them for a couple of years now to help diversify not only our sprinting community and the Commons community, but the general Salesforce ecosystem. So they can use your help a number of ways. So if that's something of interest to you, let me know. Again, there are 14. If you flip to the next slide, you'll see that there are 14 different projects like this. And they are all showing up at our community sprint event next week. So this presentation is very timely because we still have a chance for you to register if you want. It's happening next Wednesday and Thursday, 9 to 3, both days. We're going to get in Zoom rooms. We're going to work on these projects. So consider registering, even if you can't attend all 5 hours on both days. You'll still be able to learn more about a project, contribute your time, and possibly have some fun as well. I'll flip past this slide pretty quickly. I like to always include some community examples. Here's one from Barbara Christensen. So feel free to read that as the deck goes out, but you can see our Zoom slide, or our Zoom image there of our event last June. And then finally, if you flip a couple slides further, you'll see how to get involved. So again, you can register for the October sprint that is in AMER appropriate time zones, though we have people coming from 9 different countries all over the world. And then we are hosting a APAC version, so APAC time zones out of Sydney time zone next month, November 18th, if that's of interest to you. It's in the evening hour time here in Pacific. But you can generally just get involved if you follow on Twitter or LinkedIn or join us in the community, Trailblazer community or the hub. And with that, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. I can stop sharing so you can
Great.
see our faces.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful and really informative.
Awesome. Any last minute questions for us? I see, Emily, you were wondering where to find more info on the Friday coffee chats. If you go to the customer success calendar, here, I'll send you a link right now. You can search the word coffee chat and it will come up. There isn't one tomorrow because we have a well-being day at salesforce.org. If here, I will give you that. There will be one next Friday. You can click there and search Coffee Chat. It's under our Circles of Success, and you can join us anytime. We'd love to have you.
And I'll also do my best to send a bunch of links around after this.
Anything else?
Yeah. This is supposed to go until 1:30, so it's totally open for, I mean, you guys probably have to leave, but if anyone wants to hang out and ask some questions.
Darn, sorry,
Laura,
I have another
I think
meeting
you're
I have to
muted.
jump to.
Were you? No.
Oh,
And I sent you a direct message regarding the UAT testing with my email address if you want to send me and sign me up for it.
and I think your sound might be having some trouble.
I was having some audio trouble, so I don't know if you were all just talking.
It's okay, we figured that out.
Ironically to you, I sent you a direct message regarding the UAT testing for the transition.
Awesome.
So if you have my email address, if you want me to be involved in it, that's fine. If
That
not,
would be awesome.
go.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. My sound just went out. I thought you were all muted and just.
I have to jump. I have a meeting that I cannot miss. So if there's any questions at all about volunteering, just let us know. There's a zillion ways to get a hold of us. If you know our names on the internet nowadays, just let me know.
Thank you, Cori.
Thank
That was
you.
a great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, we got lots of
The
chat.
awkward moment of silence.
Da da da.
So actually, yeah, I'll ask Brian. I mean, are you finding any abuses of companies like trying to use this pro bono stuff as basically replacement admins? You have to unmute yourself if you're going to respond. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great question. I saw your note earlier in the chat, David. And generally, no. For the most part, we see, we do have a couple, organizations that submit, maybe 2, 3, 4 requests in a single year. But beyond that, for the most part, the vast majority of organizations submitting usually is one project a year, if they are submitting. So for the most part, to answer your question, no. And I think that's also we see on average from a project from the moment of submission in our system to the moment that that project is closed, usually takes anywhere between 3 and 5 months.
Okay.
Right from the moment of which you're submitting, you're potentially getting matched to a volunteer, you meet with the volunteer, you execute the project, and the volunteer closes out the system or close out the project in our system on the back end. So like I mentioned earlier, that's why time-sensitive projects just aren't a great fit. And I think it's a lot of due diligence on both sides, both from an organization perspective and the volunteer to execute.
A 2-cent suggestion then is in your next presentation, you might want to state that the average time to completion is 3 to 5 months.
Yeah, I mean,
that'll temper expectations.
Yeah, I mean, the what we see from a data perspective, I've seen projects turned around in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's such a wide variety depending on the organization and the volunteer that gets matched and the needs. But yes, thanks for the feedback.
What are the biggest projects that you're seeing requests for?
Right now, most of our projects fall into requirements gathering, solution design. So organizations that are newer on the platform or expanding use cases has been really popular the past couple of years. Just what we call standard configuration. So, page layouts, kind of the custom fields, kind of a lot of the standard admin work, and then reports and dashboards are always a pretty popular topic for folks, storing lots of data in the system, but trying to get more like visual insights out when they're reporting both into like their own leadership teams or outside of the organization to or internal teams, the board, or dashboards for external folks.
Have you thought of a standardized basically template for submission to help get people, because in all honesty, my job basically is translating what's in their head and getting it into words so other people can execute it. Because I run into clients like, I have a vision and they have no idea if their vision can be executed. And it's as vague as, like you said before, I need help with Salesforce. Well, what the hell does that mean? Have you come up with some sort of solution to help drive that, getting it out of their head into something that a nerd can pick up?
Yeah, we have the kind of what we call initial consultation calls for after they submit their application, they have a call with someone to kind of talk through that if they can't articulate it in a way that makes sense of that, high level Salesforce vision. Have we figured out a way to do that at scale without that intervention? I think we're in the process of revamping our application right now to kind of get to more of the level of granularity and detail that we need without that call in the middle. But it's a challenge, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't know what you don't know, right? Like that,
right.
That saying really applies in the Salesforce world for folks. If you're brand new to the platform and can't articulate exactly what you're trying to achieve. Because even if you can say, I want to like track all my donors on Salesforce, it doesn't mean a whole lot to a volunteer unless you talk about how you want to track them, what you know, the different aspects or objects you want to use to track them, what's out of the box with NPSP versus out of the box with Sales Cloud. Like for someone, a volunteer needs to know the difference. What's the standard, you know, operating procedure of leveraging NPSP to do donor management and communication versus like just picking, you know, regular Salesforce. So I think there's just a lot of nuance and complexity, honestly. And that's why we launched a external trail called Volunteer Your Salesforce Expertise last year, which was our first step into kind of enabling the broader Salesforce community on best practices and working with nonprofits in particular. But I think there's still a ton of work to be done to make sure that projects and this work is done responsibly and in alignment with like our best practices. So we're been working a lot and listening and learning from folks on both from the volunteer perspective and the nonprofit side to make sure that we're acting as responsibly as possible.
Sounds good.
Brian, I actually have an email in my inbox from you because you didn't touch on this in this session, but the Quick Connect, the Pro Bono Quick Connect, I just signed up for my first one of those because I now know it exists. And I just want to make sure I'm using it for the right type of thing. I only recently discovered the like the needs overdue and needs action items under release updates. And I don't like know what if anything, I need to do about those, and all those little red flag things make me anxious. So like what I'm hoping to get out of this Quick Connect session is to have someone who knows what they're talking about walk me through and tell me, do I need to do something for these things? And if so, what? Is that, am I on track with that?
You are. That was like, did I plant you in the audience, Emily? No, I wish I would. A great call out. So yeah, one thing I did mention is we do offer what we call like kind of Quick Connect events. So they happen once a month. And it's an opportunity to sign up for a single hour of support. So rather than thinking about support from a volunteer for like 20 hours, it's more, you know, looking for a more advisory session to engage with a Salesforce employee to just kind of talk through a challenge you might be facing, or, you know, in this case, like maybe getting some guidance on next steps or best way to approach a specific challenge that your org is facing, or something you're just thinking about, right? That kind of person to bounce ideas or thoughts off of. So yeah, definitely a great opportunity. I think that's a perfect use case, Emily. You know, as long as, you know, you walk into the Quick Connects with your, you know, expectation set that this is 60 minutes, you can maximize that 60 minutes between you and the volunteer. You'll get introduced usually a few days before. So that'll be your chance to kind of like iron out any additional questions and like how you want to structure that time together. But it really is a great opportunity for someone that, you know, when you're kind of in that position of like, what do I do? How do I tackle this? You know, how do I think about this? Great opportunity to leverage Quick Connect.
Is there a limit for like how many of those we can sign up for? Or
so we limit it to one time slot per organization per month. So we actually have quite a few organizations who are signing up pretty regularly for those. Just because, you know, they're, you know, kind of tackling a couple different questions.
I'll be signing up regularly now that I know that it's there's a lot of things that I don't feel like paying consultant fees just for them to tell me, you know, for like a 2-minute thing. Yeah, and it's not, you know, not meant to replace like long-term relationships or engagements with folks at all. It's more so like, I just have a quick question, or I need to like understand which direction I should be thinking or how I should be thinking about approaching this challenge that we're facing. Great question.
Last question for you. You said in this thing you hand off documentation. How are you handing off documentation in sort of like what format?
I hand off documentation. That's a best practice, right? As at the end of an engagement, but that's completely up to the volunteer and the nonprofit to determine how they want to track. Like we don't, we don't provide like, here's a specific template you should use at the end of every engagement. It's more of like how the volunteer and the nonprofit want to align and document their work and time together, and do that. We're at this point kind of, leaning on the, too many cooks in the kitchen. So like our program team tries to provide the frame for the overall engagement, and our best practices and links to, resources. But in terms of like actual implementation work, we take a hands-off approach and leave that up to the nonprofit and the volunteer to manage themselves.
Fair enough.
All right, so anyone have any other questions? Okay, then I think we'll let Anne and Brian go, because I don't know if you guys knew that it was going to last this long. You probably thought it would just go until 1. So I really
No, all
appreciate-
good.
Okay, I really appreciate your time on this and helping me put together a wonderful meeting.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that I found your name and I contacted you and
Yeah,
really
and
like this
we
outcome.
look forward to seeing everyone in this group around the community moving forward.
Wonderful. All
All
right,
right,
thanks
take care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for all the great questions.
No problem, man.
Take care.